Part 9 Context Injection. In Part 8, we have learned about a step outline and a parameterization. So, in this session, we are going to learn about what is a context injection and its utilization. Then, we are also going to learn about what is object container and how to use whenever we are performing or whenever we are using a Specflow. So, let me start this session. So, when we talk about the context injection, Specflow supports a very simple dependency framework. Now the question first comes up, what is a dependency framework, or you can say what is a dependency. Take an example of, we have a class which is this event class and a user class as well. So this event class needs the object of the user class to perform the operations. It means this user class is a dependency for this particular event class. So event class is dependent on this particular object, or you can say on the dependency which is the object of the user class. So when we are saying dependency framework, with the help of the dependency framework, we don't need to create the object of the class with the help of the new operator. Till now, whenever we are expecting or whenever we need the object of any of the class, we are using a new operator to create the object. So if we use a dependency framework, the dependency framework is going to take care of the object creation. It is going to take care of the destruction and the life cycle of the object. What we need a request of the object of the class from the dependency framework, and dependency framework is going to inject the object of the class in the constructor of that particular class. Here we can see we are using a new operator to create the object of the user class, and we can see we have the constructor, and as an parameter of the class we are passing that particular user. So what the dependency framework is going to do is, it is going to inject that particular object. It automatically creates an object inside the dependency framework, and it is going to inject that object in the constructor of the class, and then we can use it. So this is dependency framework, or you can say this is a context injection as well. So we have the IOC container as well. So this IOC container is a more advanced version. So IOC container is also known as a dependency inversion container, or you can say it is a framework for implementing automatic dependency injection. So this is a whole design pattern which we are going to use it, or you can say we are going to use whenever we are going to create a automation framework. Instead of creating the object of the classes with the help of the new operator, we are going to use this IOC container to create the object, and it is also help us to maintain the dependencies of the classes. So let me flip to Visual Studio to understand with an example. We have this Specflow session project, and this Specflow session project is a NUnit project. We have this login.feature file, and inside this login.feature file we have one scenario. We have a classes as well, which is this runner class and a web step class as well. So inside this web step we have declared all the step definitions of the corresponding steps which we have inside this login.feature file. Now if you talk about a context injection, let's go and create a class. Right click on the project, we can say add. Here is the class, we can give the name as the user, and inside this particular user class, let's declare it as a public. We are going to declare, or you can say we are going to add two fields. One is a first name, and another we are going to say we have the last name as well. So we have added a class which is this user class, and inside the user class we have added two fields. One is a first name and another is a last name as well. Here in this login.feature file, so we can add another step here. So here we can say then user adds first name and last name. So we have added a one step here. Now we need to add a corresponding step definition. Right click, say define steps, copy to clipboard, commit here in the web steps, and here we can add that particular step here in this particular web steps.cs file. So let's get rid of this pending exceptions here, and now let's have a build here. And if we go to, so let's go here in the login.feature file. So right click on this and I go to definitions. Now we have the first name and the last name. We are going to save the first name and the last name inside this user class. We are going to create the object of this user class. So what we are going to do is, so this web steps.cs file is dependent on this particular user class, means this user class is a dependency for this web steps to perform the action. here we need the object of the user class. We are going to save the information related to first name and the last name to this particular user class. Till now what we guys are going to use it, we are using this user is equal to new user, and now we have the object and we can access the fields related to a first name. Let's have this first name as Dan, and then we are using this user dot last name here as well, and we can provide the name as a last name as a lapis as well. So we have created the object of the user class with the help of this new operator. But if we talk about a Specflow provides a simple dependency framework. With the help of the simple dependency framework, we don't need to create the object of the user class with the help of this new keyword. What we need to do is we need to come in the constructor of the class, and if you talk about the constructor, right now this is the web step as a constructor. So now here we can say user, and here is the user. We are going to declare the variable name. Let's declare it at the class level here as well. So here is the user. Now we are going to assign the value, which is this object, inside this user. So now let's have this. We can say user is equal to user here as well. So we have added a user class as a parameter to the constructor of the class, which is this web step. So as I already mentioned, Specflow provides a limited functionality of a dependency framework. So when we are talking about a dependency framework, so with the help of the dependency framework, we don't need to create the object of the class with the help of the new operator. Automatically, dependency injection framework creates the object of the class and inject it to the constructor of the class. So one rule is very important. Whenever you want to use the limited functionality of a dependency framework which is provided by the Specflow, you need to add a one keyword, which is this binding keyword on the top of the class where you are going to use a dependency framework. Now here we have the binding keyword on the top of the class, and whenever we are going to execute this particular test case, and whenever the control comes it here, dependency framework is going to create the object of this user class and inject it here as a parameter. So let's do one thing. Let's go and run this. So let's come to the test explorer, and here let's have a debug point here. So let's have a debug point here. Now if we commit here, right click and say debug. Control has reached it here to the before test run. Let's click on continue. We have reached it here inside the web step class. So if we hover a mouse here, and we can see we are getting the object of the class, which is this user. So now whenever we move it here, so let's have it here, continue. It has opened this particular browser and it has assigned the value which is coming it as a parameter to the class level parameter, you can say to the class level object of the user. Now we can hover a mouse, the user is having the object of the class. Control has reached it here, and if we hover a mouse on this particular object, we can see we are getting the first name and the last name, which we are assigning to the first name and the last name variable or the fields of this particular user. So now let's click on continue, and in this way we can perform, or you can say we can get the object of the class with the help of the dependency injection. We don't need to create the object with the help of the new operator. Another important point, whenever we are using a dependency framework in the Specflow, you can say the dependency framework provided by the Specflow. Right now we are assigning the value of this user, and then in the later step, which is this user adds first name and the last name and assigning the values as well. Take an example of we want to access these values to some other class as well. At the same point of time we can access it. What we need to do is we need to do the same thing. We need to create a class, we need to assign, or we can say we need to declare a constructor of the class, and then we are going to use class name, and automatically it is going to provide, or automatically it is going to provide the state which existed here inside this user adds first name and the last name. Let's do one thing. Let's create another class. We are saying this time it is going to be the event, and let's mark this as a public. You can keep it as internal as well. So let's declare this as a Specflow class. We need to add a binding keyword, and then we need to add a constructor of the class, which is this event. If you want to access the states which we have existed here as a username, first name and the last name, if you want to access the values of this object here inside the event class, then again we can use a user as an object. So let's use this user, and we can have at the class level here. So let's use the user, and inside this we can assign the values to the user as well. So what we did it here, we have created the constructor of the class, and then we have added a parameter which is this user class as a constructor of the class, and then we are assigning the value which we have added it at the class level, which is the variable or instance of the user. Now let's commit here. We are going to say we are going to display the values, then display user information. Now commit here, right click, define steps, copy method to the clipboard, commit here in the event and paste. So if we want to display the values, then we are going to use the console.writeLine, and here is the write line. So now if you want to get the values, then we are going to user dot first name and then have the last name as well. So we are using the console.writeLine, and inside the console.writeLine we are using the fields of the object, which is this first name and the last name, and then we are going to display it. So let's do one thing. Let's have a debug point here as well. We can have a debug point here inside the event. And now if we have a build, so let's have a build here, and if we commit here inside this login.feature files, now we can see this not in purple in color. It means it is having a associated step definitions. So let's come to the test explorer, say right click and a debug. Control has reached it here, click on continue, and we can see it has opened this particular browser, move to the Sauce Lab, logged in inside the Sauce Lab application as well. So if we commit here, now we have created the object inside this particular web step, and we have assigned the values as well. So if we want to access the values in the event class, now let's go and continue. We can see we have reached it here. So now if we hover a mouse, and we are getting the values, which is this Dan and the Lapis, which is the first name and the last name, which we have assigned it here inside the web step. So with the help of the dependency injection, the limited functionality which the Specflow provides us, it helps us to keep the states between different classes. So now if we commit here on the continue, and if we hover a mouse, we can see we have the first name and we have the last name, which we have assigned it here inside the web step. Click on continue, and it is going to display the information. So let's have this, commit here, and we are getting this Dan Lapis as information on this particular summary as well.